Pursuant to Internal Revenue Service guidance, be advised that any federal tax advice contained in this program is not intended to be used, and it cannot be used by any person or entity for the purpose of avoiding any tax penalties that may be imposed by the Internal Revenue Service or any other U.S. federal taxing authority or agency, or promoting, marketing, or recommending to another party any transaction or matter addressed in this show. The opinions expressed by the host and the guests are their own and may not be used as authoritative advice. Any use of this material without the written consent of the host is strictly prohibited.
You're listening to the IRS Radio Hour with your host, Attorney Stephen Leahy, on AM560 The Answer. Tune in every week at 5 for an informative discussion about IRS obligations, credit card debt, mortgage default, collection activity, and how to resolve these legal issues using tax resolution, debt settlement, mortgage loan modification, foreclosure defense, and bankruptcy. Your host is Stephen Leahy, a Chicago attorney and the principal at OPM Tax Resolution and the law office of Stephen A. Leahy, P.C. Stephen is the author of Deal with Your IRS Problems Today. IRS and debt issues are serious, but there is help. There are resolutions. So get ready and take notes during the IRS Radio Hour. And now, here's your host, Attorney Stephen Leahy.
Hello, Chicago. I am your host, Attorney Stephen Leahy, and this is the IRS Radio Hour. Welcome back. I want to welcome all the listeners. We help people dealing with IRS problems, audits, levies, liens, garnishments, collections, and payroll tax issues. We also deal with mortgage foreclosures, loan modifications, bankruptcy, and other debt-related issues. So if you are having any of these problems, or you know someone who does, you should contact me. You know, I do have a book, and it's Deal with Your IRS Problems Today. And there's lots of answers in that book. So if you're having IRS problems, there's lots of answers in the book. And if you'd like a copy, you should call my office at 312-664-6649. Or if you'd like to talk to me and get it right from the horse's mouth, that's right, I am the horse. 312-664-6649. I want to introduce my co-host, Jim Leahy.
That's too easy, Steve. I'm going to let that one go. Anyway, welcome back, everybody. If it's Sunday night at 5 o'clock, it's the IRS Radio Hour. We do focus on financial matters, but this is also a local show. Just as Steve always says, he's a local attorney, so we like to focus on issues like politics and sports and news. And, like last week's show, we focused on the 4th of July. It was an important holiday for us, so we like to bring things up into the show that are relevant for today. And he said last week we read speeches and some things that we thought were important that people know about.
We even read the names of those that signed the Declaration of Independence to give them recognition for their heroic activity.
Yes, it was. Like I said, we went away from our normal format last week, but. It was important that we do that, and so as our regular listeners know, we always do that for a holiday and something that we think is important. So,
and I don't think there's a more important holiday than the 4th of July.
No, and there isn't. So, of course, but this week we're going to get back to our regular format. Our regular format being, Steve, you have your blog. What's your blog this week?
My blog this week. And is can my hobby be a business?
Oh, that's so. And then we'll go on to our continuing and ongoing saga, and it just keeps going, folks. It's not we couldn't make this stuff up. Our IRS as our IRS turn. So our regular saga. I didn't want to say that because we weren't ready for them. And then we go into our section of listeners' questions.
You know, they always have those hearings for the IRS on Thursdays and Fridays, and so the good stuff comes out on Mondays and Tuesdays. Yeah,
as we're on the air.
Yeah, that's right.
Because we don't want to let people down, but we can record this early sometimes.
Sometimes,
yeah, we don't do. We're not doing it live. Anyway, so what's in the news this week, Steve? What do we have?
Well, I think the biggest news is that the commissioner
Mr.
Koskinen, he was here in Chicago at the what was it, Jim?
We were speaking at the IRS Nationwide Tax Forum.
That's right. It is here in Chicago. I couldn't make it. I was supposed to go, and I had other commitments can't always get away to these conferences, although I like to attend the conferences. But this week, Koskinen was there, and I had a lot of questions for him. He's lucky I didn't show up because I had
something to hide, Mr. Koskinen.
But what he was really he had a speech there, and he talked a lot about the budget for the IRS and complained about the cutting of the budget. And the budget of the IRS has really been cut. And given the IRS problems, the Republican Congress, who has the purse strings, have even cut it more than it.
It's about time they started learning how to use the power of the purse. Back when we were little kids, when the Democrats ran everything for 50 years, if you were a chairman of the Ways and Means Committee, people, they were scared to death of you. You were in charge of all their money. Now they walk in and they flip their. I mean, they treat Congress worse than they treat the judicial. What's the name of the guys who are going Judicial Watch? And they hate Judicial Watch.
They do hate Judicial Watch.
But
that's what calls them. That's what brought them into court for the freedom of information.
Yeah, well, that's part of this week's news. We found out Judicial Watch again.
So many of my colleagues are disappointed that the IRS budget has been cut, and the reason why they're disappointed is because that means less audits.
Well, didn't he say also that they would only be able to answer half of the phone calls?
That's right. He did say that, and he's talking about the so during the IRS Enforcement Department, which conducts audits of the U.S. taxpayers, they lost 7,600 jobs, going from 50,400 in 2010 to 42,800, and the standard was always that they could answer 79% of your calls. So 21% of the people never got their call answered. But now with the cut in the budget, and I think the cut in the budget is
something like $526 million
from last year.
Yeah, from last year.
So in 2000,
and $1.7 billion less than the president asked for.
That's right. And so it was in the 2014 budget is $11.3 billion. So maybe they can't make those videos. Instead they won't answer your call, but they'll still make the Star Trek videos.
That's like when you try to cut the budget for the city. The first thing they get rid of is teachers, firemen, and cops.
That's right.
So that people feel like, oh my God, you got to give the money back.
They want to cut the CTA, and the first one is the most traveled one.
Instead of cutting the alderman's budget.
Sorry, because nobody will notice if they cut the
alderman's budget. That's true.
So this is something you will notice. Why? Because they're telling you that 50% of all the calls to the IRS will not even be answered.
But see, now, I have a question to ask. If you're an attorney, do you go on different lines, or do you have...
There's one, it's called the Practitioner's Helpline. And so as an attorney, we call a different phone number. It still is. You still don't get right through. It's not like you call and the IRS answers. I've been on hold for an hour and a half many times. Most of the time. And they talk here about average wait time of 18 minutes. I think that's optimistic. I don't think there's not very often that you get through in 18 minutes. And that seems odd, but it's the truth. And again, if you're trying to do this yourself and you're trying to call the IRS during the day, they're not going to answer your call 50% of the time. Well, it's unbelievable.
Well, that's what I mean. I think so. It's important that people, if they're having trouble and think they can do it by themselves, it's probably better to have somebody who there's tremendous red tape
in the bush, Shelley. I understand. There is tremendous red tape, and it is again. And people came in my office this week, and I try to do this stuff themselves because people think, hey, I'm an honest person. I have nothing to hide, and I'm going to sit down with the IRS and just tell them what happened. And they wind up telling them things that just they should not ever say.
You'll be sorry.
You will be sorry. And I said, I had a person in my office this week, and they were telling me, the person I talked to, they were so nice and helpful, and they seemed empathetic, and we had common stories, and then I got the deficiency. I was like, what happened there? I thought the guy was nice. Maybe he was, and maybe he only did half what he could have done. But it was still terrible, and they find actually that case had to be about what the blog post was. I had already posted the blog, so it was just a coincidence. But I get these cases.
Well, we have a regular show this week, and we have of course, like I said, our regular ongoing sagas, and so
The listener question?
Our listener question is what?
It's about involuntary bankruptcy. And that's an interesting area of the law.
And if somebody wanted to ask you about involuntary bankruptcy, Steve, what would they do?
Well, they can go to chicagotaxteam.com and look on my website because we talk about involuntary bankruptcy on the website. But better yet, call me.
And what's the phone number?
And the phone number is 312-664-6649. You'll talk to Bonnie and ask her to set up a time to talk to me on the phone or come on in the office. Always happy to see.
Steve, if they're going to miss part of the show, could they get a podcast of the show?
The podcast is on chicagotaxteam.com. It's also on 560theanswer.com.
And we are also, but if we go to...
And we have a video now.
We have a video now, too.
This is high-tech stuff, mister.
We're moving right up the ladder.
That's right.
And we want to see you guys back on the other side, so...
That's right, and...
I don't remember what you wanted to say.
Stay where you are.
Hi, I'm Stephen Leahy, a local Chicago attorney. I believe that God has given each of us unique abilities, and we are to use those abilities to help others. I have helped hundreds of Chicagoans recover from financial disaster, and if the IRS is threatening you with liens, levies, or garnishments, or you have years of unfiled tax returns, I want to help you. Compliance is the first step to resolving your IRS problem, and compliance begins with your 2013 taxes. Are you ready? If you call now, make an appointment, and visit my office for a free confidential consultation, we will complete your personal 2013 tax return at no charge, even if you don't hire me to resolve your IRS problem. Remember, I'm a local Chicago attorney. Investigate me. Simply Google Stephen with a V, Leahy, Leahy, reviews to find out what the Better Business Bureau and others have said, or call me at 312-664-6649. Again, that's 312-664-6649. Visit us on the web at chicagotaxteam.com. Call me today.
Welcome back to the IRS Radio Hour with attorney Stephen Leahy. Stephen has helped hundreds of Chicagoans recover from financial disaster, and he wants to help you and your family. There are resolutions, and you will hear about all those resolutions during today's informative discussion on the IRS Radio Hour on AM560 The Answer. Now, here's your host, attorney Stephen Leahy.
And welcome back. We're here on the second segment, which is my blog segment.
I stayed right where it's at.
That's good. I asked you. I ordered you to.
So this week's blog section is about what, Steve?
It's about can my hobby be a business? And
it depends on what your hobby is.
That's probably true.
But more these days,
what happens is when you get audited, the IRS goes through all your tax form, your tax returns for the last 3 years. Usually it's 3 years. And then they disallow a bunch of your deductions from
of course they do.
From Schedule C. Schedule C are businesses. So, you might do something on the side. I don't know. Maybe
like a magician or something?
Maybe you're a magician, and on weekends you...
Or a clown.
You know about that, right?
I don't know.
Okay. And so you might, on the weekend, you might do kids shows or something, and they pay you for that. And then, and maybe it costs more to do the activity than you make on the activity, and then you use that.
So, like you're doing it for orphans or something.
That's right, and you use those deductions to offset your other income. Mm-hmm. And so you said, well, that's a business, so I have these deductions. And if the activity qualifies as a business, then the taxpayer can deduct ordinary and necessary expenses used to conduct a business. However, if the activity is determined to be a hobby or nonprofit, if you're not going into it for a profit, then the losses of that activity can only be taken up until what your income is. So if you're only making $50 or maybe $1,000 a year, then you can only deduct $1,000. Mm-hmm. But if you're trying to make a profit, then you can deduct all of the expenses. So maybe you start a new business and it's a loss for the first year, and then you can deduct it. But again, if you've never made a profit, then the IRS will disallow your deductions.
So what is it you have to do then?
Well, again, there's a lot of good cases out there. So there's a rule of thumb that says you should make the best way to make your hobby deductible is to earn a profit. Mm-hmm. If you earn a profit, then you can deduct all those things, and there's not going to be a question whether that was a allowable or a business or not, because you're making a profit and you're going to pay tax on the profit.
Oh.
See, the problem arises when you don't make a profit and there's a loss, and then you're using that loss to upset. So there's been cases. So a guy he likes to bowl a lot. So then he calls himself, I want to be a professional bowler. So now all my bowling activity, that's all deductible because it's a business.
You mean it's not?
Then the IRS.
Oh, my God. I'm kidding, IRS. I don't bowl.
And then the IRS will disallow it and then say, no, you cannot take your bowling. You're not a professional because you're not making any money. And the rule of thumb is that you should make a profit at least 3 out of the last 5 years, including the current year. So if you can show, sometimes I make a profit and sometimes I don't, then the IRS will allow you to take those deductions as a business.
But what you're saying is the important part of it is that you file.
You have
any
to
kind
file
of money.
it.
I mean, any money that you're.
Well, you report it. That's right.
Oh, report it.
That's
any money that you've made.
You have to report. That's right. And then again, you try to back it all out as well. These are good expenses, and so I can offset some of my other income. And again, the rule of thumb is that a profit 3 years out of 5. But it's not that rule of thumb is not written in stone. And so if you can show the IRS for other activities, so for instance, there was a case where there was a documentary filmmaker, and she was an attorney and made a fairly good living. And
as an attorney or a filmmaker?
As an attorney, because as the filmmaker job, she had lost money for 8 years in a row. And she used hundreds of thousands of dollars in expenses. She deducted it from her on her tax forms and offset some other income that she was making as the attorney. And the IRS disallowed those, and she took them to tax court. And at tax court, the tax court decided that a documentary filmmaker, that's probably going to take some time to make a profit. And they allowed her 8 years. They allowed her to deduct all that because the judge said, well, this is an important activity. We need to encourage people to be documentary filmmakers. I don't know why. I guess that's D'Souza would agree.
I am now a documentary filmmaker. Please keep tuned in here, and I'll tell you why to watch our documentary.
So again, she had, so she was showing that she put a lot of time into it, a lot of effort. She was working very hard to make it profitable, but she just never did make it profitable. I think it did eventually become profitable, but for 8 years, the IRS, she got those deductions that she shouldn't have otherwise. I shouldn't say shouldn't. She should have got them, but the IRS generally won't allow those. And they didn't in this case. She had to go to court. And a lot of times you have to go to court because they're not going to allow you to take these deductions on its face. Okay, they're always going to take the most extreme position.
And the IRS doesn't think it's important to have documentaries.
No, I don't think so. Although they like to do those
own
parodies.
films. Their own parodies.
That's
right. My first documentary will be from prison, being put there by the IRS.
So the next thing you can do is, and there's another case about a guy who is a track coach, and he didn't make any money either for some time, but he took some activity. So, for instance, he opened a separate bank account. He kept accurate records. He advertised. He met with a professional to try to how can I make this business profitable? So he was showing activity that showed I want it to be profitable. It's just not profitable now. And so because the standard is really, did you undertake this to make a profit? That's really the standard. And then these are some things you can do to try to show the IRS, yes, I'm trying to make a profit. I might not succeed, but I'm really trying to make a profit. I'm not using the money just to offset some other income. I mean, that I'm not using these expenses just to offset some other income.
I just think I see a thread here that seems to be keep good records.
That's always the case. You can't really prove your case if you don't keep good records, and that
seems to happen every time we talk about something.
Yeah, I know it does.
Because you better tell them that, because if you don't have them,
it's evidence. If you don't have it, you can't just simply say, I want to make a profit. Well, what evidence do you have that you want to make a profit? So, for example, you should document any time that you use. So, if you're doing this activity, write it down. Keep a log. Show how much time you're putting. And again, as I mentioned, you got to keep a separate bank account. And keep the accurate records. How much did you make? How much did you lose? Every time you went out, what did it cost you to go out there. That's all very important. And then here's another big thing is comply with the local and state and federal rules. So if you need a license, get a license.
Oh,
if you need another thing is maybe start a corporation, start an LLC, make it a separate entity. So you're not just mixing it in with your own personal income and your expenses. You're actually dividing, separating it and then keeping accurate records to show how much you're making, how much you're not. And again, a big thing is meet with some people who are experts in that field to show you how they make money. Mm-hmm. And then you try to emulate that so you can make money. It's important.
Well, then, like I said, it's important. Would you have an attorney? Would you speak to an attorney on how?
Well, I think a lot of this, especially if you've already been through an audit. First, if you're going to be audited, get an attorney first. Yeah. It's best to make this argument at the beginning before they impose the deficiency. Because if I can make the argument and say, hey, here's reasons why this is a for-profit. This, activity. This is under Section 83 of the tax code. Activities not entered into for profit. So if I can show, hey, this was I did do this for a profit, and I can prove it, and here's all these things that I show. Most people who are doing this themselves, again, they're going to sit down with the IRS and they say, I didn't do anything wrong, and they're going to look at all these records, and you're not really presenting it for them. So what we do is we take your records and present it in the best light possible. A lot of times it's like when you go to court or anything. You want to do the job, make it as easy for that person as possible. If you're just throwing out records and saying, here, take a look at this box. There's something in here that might explain it. What you want to do is you want to present it in a very easy way for the auditor to understand.
And how could somebody get in touch with you if they wanted to do this?
Well, again, I think if you're being audited, then you need to contact me right away, and that's 312-664-6649. And if you've been audited and there's a deficiency, again, it gets a little bit harder, but you can't fight this on your own. Then you should call me again at 312-664-6649. Go to my website, chicagotaxteam.com. On the top left, there's a link for the IRS Radio Hour, and you can go to there and you see a lot of videos and listen to our show.
Or AM560, The Answer, at 5 o'clock on Sunday evening.
That's right. Listen to the show.
Go ahead.
Stay where you are.
Hi, I'm Stephen Leahy, and for me, success comes when I help other people. That's why I became an attorney. I know the economy has taken a financial toll on many families and businesses, but I believe that they can recover from their financial problems if they just get the right help. I'm here in Chicago, and I know that if people improve their financial situation, they improve their lives, and I want to help. If the IRS is attacking you with liens, levies, or garnishments, if your mortgage company has threatened foreclosure, or collectors' calls are driving you mad, you need help. We listen to your financial situation, find out what's really going on, and develop a workable solution. Remember, I'm right here in Chicago, and your first visit is completely free and confidential. I will tell you on the spot what can be done and what it will cost. If you are looking for help, you've come to the right place. Call me, Stephen Leahy, at 312-664-6649. Again, that's 312-664-6649. Or visit us on the web at chicagotaxteam.com. Call me today.
You're listening to the IRS Radio Hour with attorney Stephen Leahy on AM560 The Answer. Attorney Stephen Leahy brings his passion and expertise to your radio each and every week during the IRS Radio Hour. Tune in, take notes, and be educated. Learn your options resolving financial obstacles that face so many. And now, back to the IRS Radio Hour with your host, attorney Stephen Leahy.
Welcome back. I am your host, attorney Stephen Leahy, and this show is sponsored by OPM Tax Resolution and the law office of Stephen A. Leahy, PC.
Is that you?
That is a separate entity, Jim.
PC. It's a separate entity.
We have the same name.
We are now into our ongoing saga
as the IRS turns.
This week, beginning with our list of senators who have been brought in front of the Senate Ethics Committee by the group called Center for Competitive Politics. We start this section always by reading off their names, their infamous names. I'm going to start with our own Senator Dick Durbin. Then you have Senator Levin, Senator Schumer, Senator Franken, Senator Sheehan, Senator Udall, Senator Whitehouse, Senator Bennett, Senator Merkel. All of these people were using the IRS to go after people because of their political beliefs. So what we want to do is remind people who they are. Some of them, like our own Senator Richard Durbin, is up for re-election this year, and I think that we ought to try to remind him that we do not appreciate what he does, and pretending to use the federal government as if he's a Chicago committeeman and using the levers of government against his enemies. I
agree with that, and I have to say that he has no apologies. It's like the commissioner standing before the hearings, and he's got no regrets, no apologies. No. So how dare you even question what I'm doing?
Yeah, or I'll stick the IRS on
you. That's true. They will. So that's a real threat now, isn't it?
Yeah, it sure is. This week in our ongoing,
or Lois Lerner's former agency, which was the Federal Election Commission.
Well, that's another story that we can go into and talk about Al Salvi and how she used that part of the office to go after Al Salvi when he was running against Dick Durbin the first time Dick Durbin was in office. Seems to be an ongoing theme.
I see that
with Richard Durbin. Anyway, this week it
seems to work.
Evidently, he's been there forever. We have Representative Steve Stockman filed a resolution directing the sergeant at arms to arrest Lois Lerner.
And it hasn't passed. It hasn't even come up for a vote. But I think he's got like 27 or 28 co-sponsors, and so it probably is going to pass.
It's probably going to pass, and he's going to say, and he said because asking the Justice Department to prosecute her is a joke.
It is a joke.
And people are starting to see that.
And that's another part of this saga is now the seeking the impeachment of Eric Holder.
And that's connected to all of this. Yes. Senator Cruz spent 46 minutes on the floor just before the 4th of July, and a group of House and a group in the House is going with him, and he said impeaching the Justice Department or impeaching justice is intolerable, and he should not be permitted to refuse the American people a true investigation into the actions of those who have used the machinery of government to target, intimidate, and silence, or to target, intimidate, and silence them for politically driven reasons. No, I have a photographic memory. The problem is I wasn't wearing my glasses when I took the photograph.
that explains it.
I'm kind of blind. Anyway, Cruz said, and he said that on the Senate floor. He spent 40 minutes outlining his case. Spending the bulk of the time on the IRS scandal, but also citing Justice's failure to enforce other laws, such as we remember, Fast and Furious, or the journalists whose phone records were taken and abused, or So if Holder refuses to appoint a special prosecutor to investigate the IRS scandal, Cruz will support the impeachment of Holder, and that's a new one for this.
I support the impeachment of Holder.
We just have to, we have to continue to let people understand why we bring this up every week. We bring this up because this is banana republic kind of thing. You cannot use the government and the levers of government to go after your political enemies. It's
That's
basic.
why we have a Constitution, First Amendment rights.
Of course it is. This is basic. This woman has admitted to sending information to the FBI, to sharing information between federal agencies, which is illegal. It's totally illegal, and the fact is,
I heard during the hearing there was a timeline given. We don't have time to go into the timeline because it's so long.
That's right.
You go back and find out how this all timed out for her to find out that there's a congressional investigation. The emails that come out and tell her that that say we shouldn't talk about this.
Oh, that's right. That's another thing. We might have to get into this in another section. See, this section is no longer long enough for us to talk about our ongoing saga.
I know, because we didn't even touch on all the
we haven't touched
stuff.
about the email that came out this week that said don't talk, or the instant messaging.
Is that can we track the instant messaging? No. And she says perfect.
And then all of a sudden all of the hard drives crashed.
Yeah, that was 10 days
Steve,
later.
how can people get in touch with you?
312-664 888-866-4649, chicagotaxteam.com, every Sunday night here at AM560 The Answer.
See you on the other side.
Hi, I'm Stephen Leahy, a local Chicago attorney. I believe that God has given each of us unique abilities, and we are to use those abilities to help others. I have helped hundreds of Chicagoans recover from financial disaster. And if the IRS is threatening you with liens, levies, or garnishments, or you have years of unfiled tax returns, I want to help you. Compliance is the first step to resolving your IRS problem, and compliance begins with your 2013 taxes. Are you ready? If you call now, make an appointment, and visit my office for a free confidential consultation, we will complete your personal 2013 tax return at no charge, even if you don't hire me to resolve your IRS problem. Remember, I'm a local Chicago attorney. Investigate me. Simply Google Stephen with a V, Leahy, Leahy, reviews to find out what the Better Business Bureau and others have said, or call me at 312-664-6649. Again, that's 312-664-6649. Visit us on the web at chicagotaxteam.com. Call me today.
Welcome back to the IRS Radio Hour with attorney Stephen Leahy. Stephen has helped hundreds of Chicagoans recover from financial disaster, and he wants to help you and your family. There are resolutions, and you will hear about all those resolutions during today's informative discussion on the IRS Radio Hour on AM560 The Answer. Now, here's your host, attorney Stephen Leahy.
Welcome back. We are here on AM560 The Answer. It's Sunday night
At 5 o'clock?
That's right. We're here every Sunday at 5 o'clock on AM560 The Answer.
So welcome back, everybody.
That's right. And this is our segment where we talk about questions.
Listeners' questions.
That's right. And this week, we're going to talk.
Yeah, what is the listener's question?
This listener question this week involves involuntary bankruptcy. And
Sounds horrible.
It is horrible. Bankruptcy is bad. But a lot of times you hear people say, I've been forced into bankruptcy. I think most of the time what they're talking about is that, the situation doesn't give them any other option and they have to file bankruptcy by themselves. It's still a voluntary bankruptcy. You still go in, file the case, and provide everything up front. A truly involuntary bankruptcy is unique. It happens in that some creditors will get together and they'll file a petition for a business. So generally, it's a business.
Does that force you into liquidation? What does it do?
Well, they try to force you into liquidation, and that's what they're saying. They're saying, listen, judge, this company should be in bankruptcy. Usually, it's because there's some assets of the company, and the creditors are afraid. So, for instance, I might have a big building or something, and I'm trying to sell it. And once I get the money, then the owner will scam the money and take off, and there won't be anything left for the creditors. So sometimes the creditors will get together and they'll force a bankruptcy, and they'll say, Judge, these assets here, we need to freeze them, and so that they can be used to pay off some of these creditors rather than taken by the owner and wasted. And so that's why you have a involuntary bankruptcy. It's still under Chapter 7 or Chapter 11 of the Bankruptcy Code. So you can force them into Chapter 7, which is liquidation, so you're making the business go away, or you can force them into Chapter 11, which is a reorganization of the business, and a trustee will take over and start running the business for them. It's kind of unique in that sometimes these are abused and that some creditors will get together. It happens also with partnership. So some partners in a partnership might be running the business, and there might be some silent partners, and they're afraid that those that are running the business are running it to the ground. And so the partners will force the company, the partnership, into a bankruptcy so they can save those assets and make sure that they're guarded and that there's going to be something left. But again, it can be used as a bad thing, and that's why when they file an involuntary bankruptcy, initially there's a gap period before there's an order of relief, which is what really starts the bankruptcy, and the court wants to review the situation and say, should this really happen?
So do they give warnings out to the other partners or to the business?
If the creditors bring in what they call one in bad faith, if they bring a bad faith involuntary bankruptcy, there could be huge sanctions. And this is one reason why you don't hear a lot of it, because the creditors are generally afraid. They don't know enough about the business. You have to have so many of the creditors. If there's more than 12 total creditors, then you need at least 3 creditors who have what they call a bona fide claim, to file this, to get together and file it against that entity or that business. It happens again. I was talking to the United States trustee, and she mentioned that it happens a lot in unions. So the people who are running the union are spending a lot of the union's money, and those on the board will force the union into bankruptcy. And this is a big part of a big way to protect the assets for the union's members. It gets complicated. Again, you're still in Chapter 7 or Chapter 11, and if at first they have to prove again that you haven't paid your bills. Because if you're paying your bills on time, then you can just go in front of the judge and say, "Hey, judge, I'm paying my bills. Everything's fine here. I don't know why."
Would the judge call you in and tell you that these people are doing this, or would this? When is it that you find, if it's involuntary? When is it that you find out?
It's a lot like any other lawsuit. So when they file this petition, it's like a complaint. So then they have to get you served. So they have a special process server or a sheriff or somebody. I don't think the sheriff. I don't think federal law is a sheriff. It's generally a special process server, and they come out and they give you a copy of the summons. Actually, I think even in federal court, you can just send it certified mail and get a copy of that summons, and then you have 20 days. The alleged debtor, it's called, because you're not really a debtor. It hasn't really been officially a bankruptcy yet. So the alleged debtor has 20 days to file an answer to the complaint or the petition and tell the judge why this shouldn't happen. You shouldn't be able to go forward with this bankruptcy against my company. We're really in good shape, and we could make this work, and we shouldn't be in bankruptcy. And if I could prove that, again, then I can make the other side pay for all my legal fees, and then there'll be some other damages, punitive damages, and it could be a lot of money, and it could cost the creditors a lot of money to force you into bankruptcy.
So that's why this is like an extreme.
It is extreme. Yes.
It's extreme, and people don't just do this.
You don't hear a lot about it. That's right, and I've seen a couple of them. Again, it generally involves creditors who are trying to protect assets. And
if I had assets I wanted protected, how could I call you?
You should call me at 312-664-6649. Go to Chicago Tax Team, and we have on the left-hand side, there's a link. It's IRS Radio Hour. But there's also a blog there, and there's a lot of this information on the blog. And so if you have any problems with that, you should contact my office.
Or you can leave a question.
We haven't talked about that.
No.
So you send me a question at questions@irsradiohour.com. And again, you can call me at 312-664-6649.
Stay where you're at.
Hi, I'm Stephen Leahy, and for me, success comes when I help other people. That's why I became an attorney. I know the economy has taken a financial toll on many families and businesses, but I believe that they can recover from their financial problems if they just get the right help. I'm here in Chicago, and I know that if people improve their financial situation, they improve their lives, and I want to help. If the IRS is attacking you with liens, levies, or garnishments, if your mortgage company has threatened foreclosure, or collectors' calls are driving you mad, you need help. We listen to your financial situation, find out what's really going on, and develop a workable solution. Remember, I'm right here in Chicago, and your first visit is completely free and confidential. I will tell you on the spot what can be done and what it will cost. If you are looking for help, you've come to the right place. Call me, Stephen Leahy, at 312-664-6649. Again, that's 312-664-6649. Or visit us on the web at chicagotaxteam.com. Call me today.
You're listening to the IRS Radio Hour with attorney Stephen Leahy on AM560 The Answer. Attorney Stephen Leahy brings his passion and expertise to your radio each and every week during the IRS Radio Hour. Tune in, take notes, and be educated to learn your options resolving financial obstacles that face so many. And now, back to the IRS Radio Hour with your host, attorney Stephen Leahy.
We are back on the IRS Radio Hour with your host, attorney Stephen Leahy. I just heard that.
I did too. Deja vu.
All over again.
Excellent.
That's right. So this is, I wish we had more time because I'd like to, we missed so much about the IRS saga.
Stuff. Yeah, we missed the Lois Lerner's attorney.
how he had to backtrack.
Yeah, he had to backtrack. The funny thing was, who was it? Chairman Issa said, "Well, we're going to call the Mr. Koskinen back up because Mr. Koskinen said some things that her attorney said." He wasn't under oath, but Mr. Koskinen was.
Yeah.
So we're going to have so this is going to be this week.
We didn't even talk about the instant messaging.
No, we brought it up a little bit. There's instant messaging coming. So we have a lot coming up on this on our ongoing saga.
And there'll probably be more before the next show.
I like today we're missing.
How are we going to fit it all in?
I don't know how we fit it in.
we don't always.
No, we don't. So that's why there's a lot. That reminds me, we have to get back to no. I'm kidding. Our whole, I forget what it was that we were supposed to do 3 weeks ago about the IRS.
We were also supposed to talk
Bill
about
of Rights or whatever. How the IRS.
Talk about the Bill of
Rights.
Rights.
But we didn't talk about how it got there and the background of that.
From 1996.
Yeah, this is a lot of stuff that we're going to have in the future,
folks.
Else
we didn't talk about FATCA.
Oh, we haven't brought up FATCA. That's right. So you guys have a lot to look forward to the future of these shows on Sunday nights.
That's another area where Obama came in and changed the rules at the last second by the stroke of a pen.
Yeah, he just waves his magic wand and things change.
The law's different.
And bling! I don't have to follow that law.
I don't like that law. Let's change that one.
I have a feeling that we're going to be talking a lot about this new the IRS and how they're as we cut their budget. The fact is, a lot of Obamacare is coming up, and it's a lot of that is underneath their
authority. That's right.
Their purview.
That's right.
So
we'll be able to talk. We'll be able to fit that into our
ongoing saga.
That's right.
It's unbelievable. How it all meshes together.
How important the IRS is, and if the IRS is after you. You know how important they are because they have this power that is unstoppable.
Yep.
And you need help.
And how would they get help, Steve?
They should call an attorney. And
not just any attorney.
Not just any. Call a local attorney. That's correct.
Oh boy. How did I even know you were going to say that?
And a local attorney here in Chicago would be me. Stephen Leahy at Opum Tax Resolutions.
You mean you're from Chicago?
I am from Chicago. Some people think I even sound like I'm from Chicago.
I don't think so. I've never heard anything that you ever said that sounded like you were from the city of Chicago.
Some people think that, though, Jim. I don't know what makes them think that.
The city that starts with a C, ends with an O, and has Hickok in the middle.
Okay, Norm.
Well, you like
George Wendt, one of my favorite actors. I love that guy.
Well, we also have like I said, we have a lot of things coming up in the future. Our ongoing saga might have to move to the middle part of, and we'll move the blog thing down.
But before we run out of time, I want to tell people that we record this on video, and so you should go to my website.
You can see this on video.
That's right. It's even more interesting in video than it is over the radio. Believe it or not,
he's
true.
Not wearing pants.
It's just not true, Jim. I have to stand up to show the video that I am wearing.
Don't. But he has to wear pants next week, though.
Okay, so you could visit the website. There's lots of good information. There's a link there to get my book, so you can get a copy of my book
for free.
Yes, for free. Call me at 312.
You're just giving stuff away.
That's right. That's what we do. Like the information.
That's what we do. Yeah, the information, not the other stuff. Let's not get crazy.
Well, we give away a lot of free information because once you are informed of how bad the IRS could be, you'll want to call me. 312-664-6649.
See you next week.
It's a great week.